Hello everyone, it's Lindsay, and today I'm back with Word Study Wednesday. Today we are going to be taking a look at the word glory. I am working with set 2 of the word focus cards from Open Journey. I will have those linked down below for you guys. Definitely check out that section of the shop if you haven't already. They have lots of options for the word focus cards in different formats, sizes, things like that. So depending on how you want to work through these word studies. Like past word studies, I will have all of those linked down below for you guys in a playlist if you want to see how I've worked through past words. Also has some Tip Tuesdays down there, kind of sharing the process and the resources that I use and all that goodness. So if you have questions, if this is the first Word Study Wednesday that you've jumped into, check out those resources down below. And if you still have questions, leave those down below and I will respond to those. So taking a look at the word glory, there are two words that mean glory. So depending on whether you are in the New Testament or Old Testament, New Testament is going to be in Greek, Old Testament is going to be in Hebrew. So I did go ahead and jot down the information for both those versions because at this point I wasn't quite sure which verse I was going to go with. So for glory in the Greek, we have G1391. That is the Strong's Concordance number. The Greek word is doxa. And then for the definition, there's a couple different definitions for glory. We have opinion, judgment, or view. Opinion, estimate, whether good or bad concerning someone. In the New Testament, always a good opinion concerning one, resulting in praise, honor, and glory. You'll often see that kind of all together. Splendor and brightness in reference to the moon, sun, stars, or magnificence, excellence, preeminence, dignity, and grace. I think that's probably the definition that we tend to attribute to the word glory, right? We think about the glory of the Lord being this bright splendor of the Lord. And then a most glorious condition, most exalted state. The glory of God, right? And then in the Old Testament, the Hebrew word H3519 is kabod. So it means the same. It's just one is Hebrew, one is Greek. And so the definitions, glory, honor, glorious, abundance, it's going to be the same thing. So Ingrid did have a ton of verses for us, and there are even more outside of what's listed here. I just went ahead and did the top row of New Testament and then the bottom row of Old Testament. I kind of skipped over. I did look at this middle row of verses, but I didn't write all those down because it was a little more than time than I wanted to spend at that point. So we have 2 Corinthians 3:18 says, "But we all, with unveiled faces, looking as in a mirror at the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory, just as from the Lord, the Spirit." And you'll see this kind of theme throughout many of the verses, looking at the glory of the Lord, and then also, a little bit of a hint as to what our final state will be in eternity with Christ. So that's kind of what it's talking about there. John 1:14, "And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, glory as of the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth." Matthew 16:27, "For the Son of Man is going to come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and will then recompense every man according to his deeds." So looking at that second return of Christ coming in the glory of his Father. Matthew 24:30, "And then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with power and great glory." Again, looking at that second coming of Christ. Oh, praise God, cannot wait for that day, right? Mark 8:38, "For whoever is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will also be ashamed of him when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." Again, Christ returning. Okay, so jumping down into the Old Testament, remembering now this is going to use the same word glory, but this is going to be in that Hebrew translation. "Who is the King of glory? The Lord of hosts, he is the King of glory." Psalm 104:30-31 says, "Thou dost..." Real quick, this was kind of interesting. So I was working out of this Keyword Study Bible. I mentioned this last week. This is a new resource for me. This is in the NASB translation. And so when I hopped over to Psalm 104, 30, 31 and saw, thou dost send forth thy spirit, I was like, wait a second, was this like why? This is not the NASB translation. We don't have thou dost send forth thy. That's more King James language. But I did see a little notation in here saying that, let me see if I can find it once again. Basically, anywhere where it's like a prayer, then it will be, I think it said a prayer, that it would be in that text. Let me find a little notation here. Okay, yeah. So here it says, thou, thee, and thy are not used in this translation except in the language of prayer when addressing deity. So they have, for some reason, made this decision to leave it in that form. And I saw that quite a bit in the Psalms. I have not read through this entire version, so I'm sure it appears in other places. But just so you know, that was an intentional doing on their part. It was not like an oops, an oops. So Psalm 104, 30 through 31, thou dost send forth thy spirit, they are created, and thou dost renew the face of the ground. Let the glory of the Lord endure forever. Let the Lord be glad in his works. Psalm 21:5, his glory is great through your salvation. Splendor and majesty you place upon him. Isaiah 45, when the glory of the Lord will be revealed and all flesh will see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. And then Psalm 19:1, this is the verse that I ended up focusing on. The heavens are telling of the glory of God, and their expanse is declaring the work of his hands. This was actually a verse that I had studied recently. You have not seen the article yet. It'll be coming out in March, but I wrote an article for Retro Hit Magazine, and we are talking about general revelation, and that is what this verse is referencing. The heavens are telling of the glory of God. So this idea of general revelation, that the earth, that the creation that God has created also reflects who he is. We can see some of his characteristics and find his identity within creation. And so we see in Romans, it says that way we are, I believe it's in Romans, we are without excuse. So, you know, you may not have heard the gospel, but you should at least be able to acknowledge that there is an intelligent design to the world. And you can see that just by looking at the stars in the heavens and, how seeds are created to plant themselves and just all these little details within creation. Even just how our body functions and works. That is a reflection of the glory of God, his magnificence, his excellence, his majesty, his glorious condition that he is, that is reflected in the earth around us. And so you'll be able to read more about that in that issue that comes out in March. So looking at that verse, I looked up a few different commentary notes. David Guzik says that David looked to the heavens, not the spiritual heaven where God is enthroned, but the heavens of the blue sky and the night sky. That would be a good little word study for you guys, is the word heavens. And you can see that difference between heavens where God is enthroned versus heavens when it's referring to the sky, night sky. And he clearly saw the glory of God declared. And that's from David Guzik. It also says he's referring to God. He is glorious in his size, having created something so big. He is glorious in his engineering, having created something that works together so well. He is glorious in his artistry, having created something so beautiful. He is glorious in his goodness and kindness, having created something for all humanity to see. And then Spurgeon says, it is not merely glory that the heavens declare, but the glory of God. It is attributed to God. It's not just beautiful for the sake of being beautiful. It's beautiful because God created it. And so, even tribes of people in remote locations that don't have the written word of God, they can look up and see there is an intelligent design to all of this. And through God being a sovereign God, he will make it possible for them to hear the gospel when they start seeking him out. But that is a little glimpse into general revelation through that verse, and we're seeing the character of God in his glory. So there is a look at just a quick study on the word glory for this week. I hope that you are joining in with us and doing word studies, even if it's not the same word study and not in the same format or same way that I'm doing it. It really... I don't know. I just get so much out of those studies, and I know many of you have been doing the same. So for the art part, I've already gone ahead and typed out on a separate card, just in case I have bleed through, that Psalm 19:1. I went ahead and did the Hebrew translation, since I am using the Hebrew version of the word here, and I will use the Hebrew Strong's Concordance number. I have David Guzik's and Spurgeon's quote on there. And then I've gone ahead, as soon as I was reading that in the reference to, David seeing God's glory reflected in the heavens, reminded me of the kit Wait for the Lord. This was the Christmas kit a couple years ago, and the devotional actually specifically touches on that very scene of David looking up at the stars. And so you'll see throughout the graphics and things, there are stars and angels and just this very ethereal feel. And so I thought that this kit would be perfect for documenting this word. So I will link that down below for you guys. It is a fantastic devotional. Yes, it is a little bit Christmas-ish, but it's also a devotional and topic and theme that you can work through at any time. And the graphics, like I said, are more stars, night sky, that kind of thing. They're not very, very Christmas reindeers and Christmas trees. That's not how it is. Though there is a tree in there. You got to read about that as a good part of that devotional. So within that kit, there are some large sticker sheets with Ingrid's art. So I did go ahead and cut one of those down to be my background. Picked up a couple of die cuts. I love this angel. Now, when you read about angels in the Bible, this is more of our kind of modern take on the description of angels. I would encourage you to look at the biblical description. It is very different than what we envision angels to be, but there is an angel. And then I did go ahead and grab just a couple little scraps here. This is from the Worn Wallpaper Halloween set from Tim Holtz. This is definitely a moodier version of those worn wallpaper pieces. And so there was a little strip in there. And then I did use a die set. I love this crochet border, and I cut that out of a piece of background paper to kind of layer on there. And then we're just going to do a little bit of texture, nothing too crazy. So let me go ahead, put you guys on fast forward. I'll put together this card for the word glory. Okay, so I'm going to start with this large sticker element. Again, this part did come from the devotional kit. These are sized to fit in a standard traveler's notebook, but as you can see, I love to cut them down and make them work for other projects as well. So I do want to have a little bit of a border at the bottom, so I'm cutting off a little extra before I stick it down. And with larger stickers like this, I like to only expose a little bit. Stick that down and then slowly remove the backer as I press it down. That makes sure that everything stays straight. It doesn't grab to the paper before I'm ready. It just makes it a little bit easier when working with larger stickers. So I wanted a couple different textures of stars on this background. So I pulled this stamp set. This is the stamp that came with that devotional kit. You can purchase it separate, I believe. And I initially was going to stamp using some mica sprays. So I'm just dabbing the stamp into the mica spray, stamp it down, and yeah, that's not going to work because sticker paper is kind of coated. And so it was just not the technique that was going to work, but I decided to leave it in there so you can see not everything works first try. So I just quickly dabbed it off, and then I'm going to go in with Perfect Pearls instead. So I prepped the sticker and the paper with my EK Success powder tool. I'm stamping in some Versamark clear sticky ink, so you can't see what I'm stamping down there. Sorry if there is noise in the background. I am recording this in my car during school pickup. So a little bit different, but we're just going to wing with it. So then I'm going to go in and brush some gold Perfect Pearls over the top of those stamped areas, and the Perfect Pearls grabs a hold of wherever the Versamark ink is. So I'm just using a fluffy brush, stamping it down, and this just makes like a flat, like you can't feel it, it's not raised, metallic sheen. This did add a little bit of a metallic sheen to the entire sticker. You can't see it so much in the video, but it did leave a little bit of a sheen over the whole background, but I'll cover it in some other things here in a minute. So now I want to add some texture. Like I said, I wanted different textures of stars. So I'm gonna go ahead and cover the bottom of my card. And then I have this large stencil, this asterisk stencil. This is from scrapbook.com. I will have everything linked down below for you guys. I thought I had a star stencil, but I didn't. But this will get the job done. So I'm going to use some opaque white crackle texture paste. You could use whatever you want. You could even use gesso for this step, but I love that look of the crackle texture paste. I used this in a card a few weeks back, and it really had this like mosaic tile look to it. And so that's kind of what I had in the back of my mind while I was doing this step. So I just smooth that through the stencil, kind of clean up. You want to make sure you clean off your stencils and your palette knives right away. But while that texture paste is wet, I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle some embossing powder on here. So the texture paste is wet, and I'm just using my fingers to dust some powder on there. So this is gold embossing powder, and it should only stick to the areas that have the texture paste, since again, I did prep the card with my powder tool before I even did the Perfect Pearls. So it will only stick to sticky areas on the card. And I decided to have kind of a variegated look. So I sprinkled some of that gold. Now I'm going to go in and sprinkle some prize ribbon distress glaze. And then I'll also add some speckled egg distress glaze. Now, in the end, you can't really see the variation of these colors. If it was a more solid stencil or a larger area, you probably would be able to see this more. But I don't know that that's how it's going to end up. So at this point, I'm just going with it. I want it to be, again, kind of like that mosaic tile look. It was what I was kind of going for. Because that angel has just a very like antique grunge look to it, I'm wanting to carry that on in the other elements of this card. So I'm going to set that aside and let it dry. So I have not heat set the embossing powder yet. I'm just letting it air dry while I work on some other elements. These were the pieces. There was that die cut piece that came out of the worn wallpapers, and then this piece that I die cut from a worn wallpaper piece. And I'm just adding some Gathered Twigs Distress Oxide ink just to add a little bit of distress brown to the edges. And then I got impatient. You do not want to heat dry crackle texture paste, but do as I say, not as I do. I'm just running my heat tool over it to speed up the drying process. The crackle effect is not quite as intense when you do it with your heat tool, but that's okay. For the sake of the video, I'm going to try to speed it up. And then once I could tell the paste was crackled and dry, then I went ahead and concentrated on melting the embossing powder. And you can see it kind of like bubbled up and got metallic and just lots of grungy goodness. So after I did that, I am going to go in and add some Gathered Twigs Distress Oxide ink around the edges of the top of the card. At this point, I was like, I don't know. This might have been a big fat mistake. This might be the week that I don't post a video after I created a card, because it's not going in the direction that I thought it was going to go, but we're going to pull it together. So I pulled out some distress sprays. This is Chip Sapphire Distress Spray. I'm not working on a prepped background. Remember, it's just that sticker on the background. So I'm not wanting to add too much liquid because I'm not sure how that'll play on the sticker. So I'm not adding too much water. I did go ahead and spray some Speckled Egg Distress Oxide spray and sprayed a little bit of water just to activate the oxidizing. And that really pulls the background together. Now it's starting to look more like what I had envisioned. So once that's dry, I am going to go in and splatter some Picket Fence Distress paint just to bring back a little bit of the contrast that was lost by using those sprays. I made sure that was good and dry. I did use a baby wipe just to kind of lightly wipe off the surface of the embossed stars. That way they were really metallic and shiny. Now I can go ahead and glue down these little trim pieces. I like to just kind of break up anywhere there is a transition, especially when I'm keeping that area at the bottom nice and clean. I like to have like a washi tape or a pattern paper or something to kind of break up that transition from the pristine white of the bottom of the card to the top of the card. I'll go ahead and tuck in this little angel die cut. Ingrid's artwork just never ceases to amaze me. It's so beautiful, and I love getting to use it in a variety of different projects like this. And then I added that little dove in there as well, and then I will trim off the bits that are hanging over the edge, but I did go ahead and decide to leave the wings hanging over and not trim those. So before I adhere the back to the front for the card, I am going to go ahead and stamp that Strong's Concordance number, which again is the Hebrew because it's Old Testament, H3519. I'm stamping that in Gathered Twigs Distress Oxide ink. And then I will adhere the back of the card to the front of the card. You'll see there was a little bit of ink that came to the back, and that is why I do these two separate cards, because it cleans everything up and covers any mess up that might be on the back. So there is a look at the finished card. It got a little scary there in the middle. I didn't know if it was going to come together, but it did in the end. So if you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down below for me. Check out that description box for links to everything that I mentioned in the video today. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.